Uncle Mort's South Country by Peter Tinnerswood.
The great cathedral city was sulky in the summer sun. The mute swans on the languid river were lazy. Sand martins were busy. Carter Brandon and his Uncle Mort were taking breakfast in a lodging house in the lee of the brewery.
Do you like St. John the Baptist, Carter?
I'm not sure. Do you?
Certainly, lad, certainly. He'd got his head screwed on right, you see.
Why?
Because he had the good sense to realise there was no future in him investing all his money in shower caps.
The lodging house was run by two spinster ladies who had supplied them the previous evening with clean towels and religious tracts printed in Taiwan. Uncle Mort had examined his carefully with a magnifying glass from his kit bag and said,
"They've done a good likeness of Paul of Tarsus, haven't they, Carter?" I had a cousin once in Bacup who used to be the spitting image of Paul of Tarsus. They was always commenting on it in the ironmongers.
Were they?
Aye. And then he went bankrupt and emigrated to Labrador. God knows who he looks like now.
The breakfast room was cool. The elder of the two spinster ladies entered with a squelch of brogue climbing boots to inspect the condiments. She had short-bobbed, fine, steel-grey hair.
And did we say our prayers last night?
Too bloody true, missus.
Good. And what did we pray for?
Oh, this and that. I said a few words on behalf of lady ventriloquists, and I asked God about the prospects of Rochdale Hornets getting a new hooker on free transfer, and then I inquired about the chances of reducing the acidity in rhubarb. Nothing specific, missus, just this and that.
The younger spinster lady brought them in cold ham and fried eggs, and a plate of wholemeal bread and butter, with raspberry jam made by missionaries in Wolverhampton.
And did we say our prayers last night?
I've already told your brother, missus. Bloody hell, Carter. They must have been living over the brush at the Spanish Inquisition.
He attacked his breakfast with gusto. When he'd finished, he said,
These southerners. They've no idea about the efficacy of food, have they?
How do you mean?
Well, who in their right mind would think of dishing up cold ham with hot eggs? It's an affront to the official laws of nature, is that? It's worse than serving up Paul in the Bible without his Tarsus.
They completed their breakfast, collected their luggage from the dainty-loined bedroom with its lithographs of the Passion and scenes from Gilbert and Sullivan, and paid their bill. The two spinster ladies escorted them to the front door.
It was very nice having you. Did I detect a nuance of the North Country in your speech pattern, perhaps?
Too bloody true, missus. Born and bred there. My maternal uncle on the dog side of the family once ran a knuckle-duster warehouse in Broadheath.
Good gracious, my father was born in Broadheath.
My condolences. Are you certain it wasn't Nantwich he was born in?
I'm not quite sure. I never was any good at geography. That's why I teamed up with Stella here. She was born in Ellesmere Port.
Barrow in Furness. Barrow in Furness, you bastard!
They decided to take a walk round the city. The sun was gentle to the pavements. It was respectful to the tea shops and the arcades, gloating with bookshops and purveyors of quality leather goods. They came to a broad, pigeon-strutting market square. It flapped and sagged with stalls and soft country voices. Knuckles of ham, ice-eyed fish, fluttery-browed carrots, racks of trousers, earth-clogged potatoes, prim lamb cutlets. Beaten copper wall plaques, dinner services clattering on hairy chests and tattooed forearms. There was a stall selling fur-lined slippers.
Do you reckon God wears carpet slippers?
Not at that bloody price.
They walked on and came to the cathedral close. The spire soared into the stinging blue sky. It was slim and bold.
That's the highest spire in Europe.
So what? In my day I had the loudest fart in Europe, but I didn't make a meal out of it.
The greensward was gravy-boated with resting mallard. There were flintstone terrace cottages and soft-stoned mansions with wrought-iron railings and front gardens rambling with tight-cheeked roses.
It's all right for some.
How do you mean?
Well, look at it all. A load of bloody vicars and archdeacons living in the lap of luxury, guzzling vintage port and writing serials for children's television. They don't give a monkeys for the common man and his problems. Do you think they care who's relegated from the Vauxhall Conference League? Do you think they lose any sleep at nights if Tesco's run out of sardines in oil or there's an outbreak of salmonella poisoning at Thomas Cook and Sons?
No.
Precisely. The British clergy. All they are is a load of self-seeking, toadying, pink-gummed latent shirt-lifters with an unhealthy interest in Hornby train sets.
They stepped into the cathedral. There was a muted service in one of the side chapels.
Sanctimonious bastards.
Shush. Keep your voice down.
Why should I? I bet God's got a loud voice. Well, he must have to make himself heard above Harry Seacombe singing on commercial television Sunday nights. I think I'd get on well with God if ever he turned up at the Friday night Old Comrades Club piss-up.
Why?
Because he's just like me. He can't stand women. That's why he's put the boot in as regards the notion of having women vicars.
Is it?
Of course it is. Can you imagine the horrendousness of it? A woman vicar standing in the pulpit of a Sunday morning with her hair in curlers and her stockings all wrinkled round her ankles, and she'd glare down at you from on high, and she'd stab her forefinger at you, and she'd say, "The text of my sermon today is as follows. Why does he never empty the ashtray when he goes to bed on a Friday night after a stonk up with the lads at the Gaping Goose? And there's something else too. Why is his mother forever criticising the state of my tea towels and getting her elbows tangled in the back seat of the Toyota hatchback? And whilst we're on that subject, we could easily afford a new dishwasher if only he'd cut down on his stiggies and get shut of his pigeons. Here endeth the first lesson, and have I got a volunteer to put a new plug on the hoover?"
They stepped outside. They bought ice creams.
Struth. Even them cornets taste of high church round here.
You should have tried a wafer.
Pay up, there's no need to go all theological on me.